Looking for the latest comic book to add to your collection? How about the last card for that Magic the Gathering Commander deck? Well, the comic book store's got you covered. Shop online at comicbookstore.tcgplayerpro.com or come in person at 30 North Main Street, Glassboro, New Jersey. Pizza people, welcome back. We have a super spicy deck for you today. I'm just going to say up front, I had a blast with this deck. Hollywoodpizza here, and we're playing some Keruga Fires of Invention. That's right, you heard that correctly. The deck that likes to start on turn 3, but wait, there's some adventure cards in here, so we get to play a little bit earlier than that. Let's dive right into the deck list. So we have our companion here, Keruga. If you don't know what Keruga does, 3 colorless, and then hybrid green blue, 5/4. It's a companion. Your starting deck contains only cards with mana value 3 or greater and land cards. When this card comes into play, you get to draw a card for each other permanent you control with mana value 3 or greater. So, just a really strong card. I mean, the rest of your deck's going to be, 3 or higher cost permanents. So even if you just have 2 or 3 cards in play, I mean, this card definitely starts to draw a lot of cards. And on top of that, it's actually a pretty sizable body. It's like a 5/4. It's really good. I've definitely been highly impressed by Keruga. So for the rest of the deck, essentially we're running quite a bit of 3-drops like I've mentioned already a few times, but let's go over them. The first ones that we actually want to go over here are some of the cards that you're going to be able to cast earlier. So essentially Brazen Borrower and this Bone Crusher Giant can sometimes slot into this 2-drop slot, mostly because, well, let's get this back in here. Sorry about that. Mostly because the Petty Theft side and the Stomp side of this, you're going to be able to either bounce a permanent that your opponent played early, kind of stalling the game out a little bit more, or you can just outright kill it if it has 2 toughness or less. We all know how strong both of these cards have been in the past, and we still know how strong this card is in Explorer because it's played quite a bit. But these are definitely kind of like a little bit of like the backbone to help you get to a lot more of these spells. So over here we have 4 Divide by 0, an old school standard classic that got banned. You don't really get to see it too much anymore, but I think in this deck it's actually really powerful. The main thing about this card, you're able to bounce cards that wouldn't normally be you're able to counter, quote unquote, like a Supreme Verdict, Hullbreaker Horror, anything like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, just gaining some tempo, putting the card that your opponent's trying to play back into their hand, all the while getting a card from your sideboard to replace it is just a super powerful effect. We're also running 4 Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which you've seen this card a ton. It's a saga. It's got 3 abilities. The first saga part of it, first chapter, you get a 2/2 goblin that whenever it attacks, you make a treasure. Second chapter, you can discard up to 2 cards and draw that many. And then the third chapter turns into a 2/2 that for a colorless and tapping it, you can create a copy of a non-legendary creature and then it gains haste, but you have to sack it at the beginning of the next end step. So this card's super powerful. You can do quite a bit of shenanigans from it. On top of that, you get another creature, and you kind of get to filter through your deck. So we all know how good this card's been already since it's been printed, so not really too much else to say about that. Rounding out our 3-drops, so we've got 3 Anger the Gods, just a really solid card overall right now in this metagame. It's able to just get rid of so many threats, and on top of that, it has the text that says exile it instead. So any creature that gets dealt damage this way would die. Essentially, it gets exiled. So just a fantastic board wipe. It helps you kind of keep up with the aggressive decks, which those are going to be the weakest, your weakest deck pretty much that you're going to be playing up against is anything that kind of goes out too fast. So by having the 3 Anger of the Gods and an extra one on the board that we'll get to the sideboard here in a moment, just having those early board wipes can definitely help you in the game, kind of get to the cards that we're about to talk to you right now. The first one being the Sphinx of Foresight. This card has actually been pretty impressive. 2 colorless, 2 blue for a 4/4. You can reveal this card from your open hand. If you do, you get to scry at the beginning of your first upkeep. It has flying. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, while this card is on the battlefield, you get to scry 1. So on rate, 4 mana, 4/4 flyer, pretty decent. Not anything too crazy, but being able to scry every turn is fantastic. And obviously that opening hand, there's so many hands that you actually just end up keeping because this card can get you out of it. The card that pretty much the deck is built around is going to be Fires of Invention. This is a card that was actually banned in Standard. I believe it's also, I think it was fixed in Historic. I can't remember, so I do apologize about that. But In Explorer, it's just as strong as it's ever been. A lot of the time, I've seen this in like Agent of Treachery strategies, things like that. Maybe like some Grohl value decks, but I actually think this card shines here the best, mostly because you're able to play some other cards that we're about to get to. But you play Fires, you play Sphinx in the same turn. You're feeling pretty good. Get a 4/4 body, and then the next turn you're kind of able to cast a lot more free spells. Which, let's say you're not casting the Sphinx with this, maybe you get to cast a Chandra. Now you get to kill their creature. You get to start, getting a consistent damage source, which is going to help you end the game a lot sooner. Now, the top end of this deck is definitely some top end. We have a Cavalier Gales, 2 colorless, triple blue, 5/5 flying. When it comes into play, draw 3, then put 2 cards from your hand back on top of your library in any order. When it dies, you shuffle it back in, and then you get to scry 2. So not only do you get a trigger of this card going back into your deck when it dies, but that scry is just icing on the cake. This card is just absolutely phenomenal. Has just been very, very impressive for me throughout any of the matches that we've played. And on top of that, we have our other Cavalier friend here, Cavalier Flame. Same thing, 2 colorless, triple red, pretty much like same type of mana cost in their respective colors. It's a 6/5 colorless and a red creatures. So creatures, even this card will get it. They get +1/+0 and gain haste until on a turn. And when this card enters the battlefield, discard any number of cards and then draw that many cards. When it dies, it deals X damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control, where X is the number of land cards in your graveyard. So you can kind of get a pretty decent death trigger. If this dies, it actually doesn't really die too often, because most of the time the removal in the format's like a Fatal Push or some burn spells. But overall, what you're really trying to get is kind of like grind your opponent out with some of your more, regular 2-for-1s. Get a little bit of some tempo with the Divide, or maybe get a Fable down, wipe the board if you need to. And then you can kind of start slamming some of these haymakers. I mean, Sphinx, a 4-mana 4/4 flyer, I mean, that's not really like anything to scoff at. In 4 or 5 turns, your opponent's pretty much dead, especially if you dealt them like a Stomp or a Chandra, a couple points here and there. On top of that, I mean, you have some turns where, because Fires lets you cast your cards for 0, you have some excess mana in play. So what that ends up meaning is that you can actually put the Keruga into your hand, cast the Cavalier Flames, cast the Keruga. This is all on turn 5, and then activate the Cavalier Flames and start to come in for just an absurd amount of damage. And I've done that quite a bit with this deck. It's been quite a lot of fun. And, the Cavalier all in the same turn is just kind of insane. Like, there's just so many big plays that you can make with this deck that kind of start to snowball and make you go way over the top of like pretty much any mid-range deck that you're going to play against, which is what the best matchup for this deck is. In terms of special lands, we have 2 Otawara, Soaring City, which it can bounce an artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. We have 2 Den of the Bugbear, which is just a nice little creature land, utility land. We have 1 Sokenzan. You can channel it, essentially discard it to make 2 1/1 colorless spirits, so it kind of just gives you a little bit of some options here. And then we also have 4 Temple of Epiphany to kind of help scry through the deck. This card's just been really, really solid. Honestly, overall, we're just able to see lots of cards between the Sphinx and the Temples. The Fables, the Divide by 0 gives us more cards. Just a lot of card advantage in this deck. A lot of card filtering. For the sideboard, we got the Keruga there, just hanging out as usual. We also have 2 Mystical Disputes to help against anything that's like a blue type strategy, like Spirits, or maybe even like a blue-white control deck. 2 Ashiok's to help against anything that searches their deck, maybe even like an Omnath deck, like let's say they have a Fable Passage or a Cultivate. Not a bad choice to bring in against them, and it's also just a really, really strong like graveyard hate piece against like a Greasefang type deck, or maybe even Cat Oven as well. We have 2 Chandra, Awakened Inferno, which is just fantastic. Really, really great against any type of control strategy. And sometimes you might want to even bring it in against the black-red mid-range decks, maybe just 1, mostly because you're able to use that board wipe and kind of keep the damage turning turn after turn. We also have an extra Anger the Gods to help us with the aggressive decks. 4 Leyline of the Void. Haven't seen this one for a while, right? Yeah, this card just beats pretty much any graveyard strategy. You just want to sometimes just mulligan into it to make sure that your opponent's not able to do their strategy, but essentially you want to bring it against Cat Oven, Greasefang, just anything that has to do with an actual solidified graveyard strategy. This isn't a card that you want to bring in if your opponent has some graveyard cards here and there. Like, the best example was like Kroxa. Like, yeah, Kroxa can come back, but you don't even care about Kroxa, right? Like, The worst part about it is you might discard some cards, but you have so much card advantage in the deck, it doesn't matter. And a 6/6 is like fine, but I mean, you know, a lot of your cards kind of just all have a lot of huge stats. So if you have like 3 or 4 creatures already down on the battlefield, I mean, Crocs is not going to be too crazy. So, you know, overall, you really want this against the hard graveyard strategy decks. In terms of lessons, so let's go over some of the lessons that we're actually going to be catching with this Divide by Zero. We have 1, Environmental Sciences, which helps us search for any basic land, gain some life, kind of help stall out the game, or fix us if we need to kind of get to our Fires of Invention. We also have a Teachings of Archaics. This card's actually been really good because in this type of deck, you actually end up emptying your hand a lot. So if you're able to get a Divide by Zero in there, maybe getting rid of a blocker and then getting this out of the sideboard, then you can kind of just end up drawing 3 cards, which feels really good. We have a Mascot Exhibition as well as our last card in the sideboard and our last lesson here. You know, if you get to cast this for free for 7, I mean, you're probably doing pretty good. And on top of that, it's a 3-for-1. So, I mean, you know, as the game progresses longer, you have a higher chance of winning against a lot more of the mid-range decks because this deck just has so much card advantage. And Mascot Exhibition is kind of just like a nice little top end, kind of like get out of jail free card if you need it. So overall, had a blast with this deck. You can definitely check out the link to the deck list down below, same as all my content. Don't forget, we got 3 free tournaments every month, so definitely check all that out as well down below. And I hope you enjoy the video. Getting our grind on with the Keruga machine. Playing some Fires of Invention. We all remember that card, right? On the play, hand actually looks pretty decent. We got Sphinx of the Foresight, which lets us get a Scry at the beginning of our first upkeep. We also have Brazen Boros and Bone Crushers, which are going to be nice to kind of help smooth out the draw. We are playing against a Yorion deck. There are different versions of it, so we'll see if we can go over the top of this deck here. Opponent is on the mulligan, but they are on the draw, so it's a little bit more negated by that. And this is actually pretty decent. I don't think that we want this. I think that's the only thing that we don't want. But we'll go ahead and start off with a tapped Steam Vents, play the Den of the Bugbear, and go into potentially the Fable on the following turn. Looks like they're Naya, maybe? Okay. Pretty interested to see what their deck is, or maybe they're just all the colors, right? And, you know, Yorion decks kind of just can be anything that they want to be, as so long as they believe in it. Okay, gonna play land tap. So nothing yet. I think we'll just Bone Crush here. Just, you know, tempo play. And I still think we're gonna go for the Fable because we want to actually be able to ramp into our cards more and kind of get a little bit more better selection. Like the Sphinx is okay, but, you know, 4 or 5 is a little bit better. Doesn't necessarily mean that they'll have that right away. Okay, pretty good play from our opponent here. They had a March. Okay, paying the life. And playing a Cultivate. Seems pretty good. They are getting to ramp here. Would like to hit a Yavimaya Fires. Or, sorry, Fires of Invention. And we actually do. This Anger the Gods and this Brazen Bar isn't really seeming all that crazy right now. We do hit a Cavalier. So let's Fires and play the Sphinx, considering that we'll get to Scry on our upkeep. Feels pretty good. And here's a Lotus Cobra plus the Mountain. Still gives them 4. Okay. Are they going to go for another Cultivate here? Looks like they're playing maybe like a Yorion version. They are playing a Yorion version. So this Anger of the Gods is actually going to be really good right now. Even though, let's say they do still have a Yorion, like, that's okay. Didn't think that they were going to use that. So let's put this to the bottom, hoping to draw land here off the top. And we do. This card's going to come back. So unfortunately, we are going to lose the Reflection here, I believe. Okay, so we kind of just have like an absurd play here. So we're going to play this. We're not going to discard that Anger just yet. We will pump the team. We'll make a copy of the other Cavalier. And we'll pump the team again. And we're actually just going to come in for lethal here. So our opponent definitely has the block. And they're actually just going to take it. So we'll get to move on to game 2. Really, really strong hand for us there once we were able to get that Fires of Invention. So Anger is okay, considering that they still have some permanents. that we will want to stop here. The question is how good is the Mystical Disputes in this matchup? Ashiok seems okay as well if they have other cards that search, but I don't believe that just the Cultivate is really enough for me to want to play like an almost 3-mana do-nothing Planeswalker. Don't get me wrong, like, you're getting to mill them. It's going to be 20 cards, but that's not, like, nuts. You know what I mean? It's not like anything too crazy. So I think we do bring in the Mysticals here. We're seeing blue. They're probably going to have their own as well, I would imagine. Don't think we want the Chandras. Let's see. Or the 6-mana Chandras, excuse me. Divide does get a little bit worse on the draw, so I think we don't want to play that. Yeah, I think that's fine. Cut a couple Divides for a couple Mystical Disputes, see where that goes. Alright, so gonna be on the draw in this game here. A little bit more of a slower hand, but I actually think we can keep it only because of the Sphinx. The Sphinx definitely gives us a chance to either put some cards on the bottom or keep the lands on top that we want to draw. So here's the trigger. And unfortunately, we don't really hit the cards that we need. But I don't mind keeping this untapped land on top. So let's actually get another Scry in here. We'll put the Chandra on the bottom. We don't need it right now. Still mostly looking for fires. We might be able to get this Fable down. We'll see if it resolves, though. This comes into play tap regardless, so we just want to get it out of the way. Still looking for some lands. We did not hit one there. I think it's okay to play the Fable. They could have a counterspell. They do have a stop. Maybe it's just the March. Okay, they do have the veto. I guess it wouldn't be the March anyway, because nothing's in play, but that's all good. So opponent's paying some life here. And they have a Showdown of the Scalds. Pretty good card. Okay, we don't hit a land, so we're getting a little bit mana screwed here, but that's okay. Let's go get this Fable down. Creating a token. Really hoping to top deck any land here off the top would be great. We'd be able to try to slam this Sphinx onto the battlefield. And I'm not sure. Like, this Mystical Dispute's kind of a little bit awkward in all honesty. And on top of that, like, it's not, you know, if we did have the fires, this card does get a lot worse. But there's a chance we could end up snapping it off later. Maybe we wanted to keep it for the Risen Reef. It's kind of hard. I mean, maybe they're just Wandering Emperor and then just not really care too much about it. But it looks like they're going to try to go off here. Okay, Growth Spiral. Do they have some mana? They do not have lands, though. So we just get rid of this Anger and a Sphinx. Or maybe we get rid of 2 Sphinxes. Yeah, let's get rid of 2 Sphinx. Fires, but no lands. Oh, we do have a land with... I don't think that they're blocking, right? Cobra's pretty good. Cobra's a good card. Why would they block? Fires. And 2 damage here. Alright, so looking okay. I mean, Scald's still pretty scary. We have Anger in case things do get a little bit out of control. But it just looks like they're going to blow up our fires here. Yep. And if they have like a 1-drop, could have pumped up their card for a turn. So still looking a little bit mana screwed here, which is unfortunate, but we're not like out of the game by any means. You know, we're still pretty ahead here. They're going to block there. That's fine. The question is do we want to spend mana on the Sphinx because the Sphinx is going to give us some more card selection? I actually do think so. Another option would have just been Bone Crusher plus hold up the Mystical Dispute, but I really like spending our mana and getting a card that's going to help filter the top of our deck a little bit. Okay, Omnath's pretty good here. You know, it gets the redraw card. They're still not hitting the land drops. We want that for sure. So that way we can hit our lands. And what do we want to do here? So I think it's safe to copy the Sphinx. Put a 2-turn clock on our opponent here. They are actually going to get to gain some life, but I think that's alright. We'll get a Bone Crusher down and just have pretty good amount of size on the battlefield. Kiki's able to kind of copy either one of these cards if, let's say, the Sphinx dies. Obviously, the Mystical Dispute is, not as good now. It's kind of been not too impressive. Cultivate's really good here. They can go off a little bit. So let's see if they find some answers for the Sphinx, which right now is giving us the best chance to win this game. Okay, they have a Strangle on the Reflection. 4 cards left from the opponent here. And it looks like they might just have another removal spell on the Sphinx. Really hoping to top deck a land so we can play one of our Cavaliers. It may even end up being Cavalier Flame because it's just going to get rid of a lot of dead cards in our hand. We're like almost hoping that they kind of commit a lot more to the board. Chariot's fine. It's a little bit scary, but not the craziest card. So hoping to scry land here. We hit a Fires. Fires would be good eventually. The problem is that we're not drawing cards after that, so Stomp. Okay. So I think we might still come in for 4. Because it's flying, puts them down to 8. So kind of keeping up with like 1 land drop a turn. Maybe the Ashioks are better than the Angers? I'm not sure though. Like it's just Cultivate that we're really worried about when they're searching so far. We haven't seen, I guess the Fable would be pretty good against the Fable patch, so I guess there is an argument for it. Okay, they're going to copy the token. We'll just block here. Yep, make the trade. Not really too worried about that. Do they have a land drop? No land drop. We get to scry. Brazen Borrower. I don't think we need that. We really just want to hit a land here. Tap land is fine. It's still a card. We can play. I guess we just come in for 4 and then try to wipe most of the board here. With this Anger of the Gods. Let's hope they don't have like a Stomp for our Sphinx. But then either way we have a Cavalier to follow it up with. Dovin's Veto? Sure. That's fine. It's like annoying, but it's not like the end of the world, They still got 3 cards left. Like that's a bit annoying. You could also maybe like Sky Noodle if they have a land drop here. They're 1 power, or yeah, different powers. Yep, 1 power away from being able to activate this. But all these cards kind of just have the same power so far, so they need like a 1 or a 3 here. They might have it, so they're contemplating probably like what the outcome of their turn is. It's looking like. Wow, and they have an Ashaya, so that's actually huge. 10-10. Okay. Coming in with some creatures. I think we block though, right? If they attack. It's not really like a crazy good attack for them. Do they have like a blue card we can counter it, which feels pretty good still. Alright, they're gonna put Yorion in their hand. Do we just draw this since we're drawing a bunch of cards anyways? Maybe we do, just to kind of... We know that it's just gonna grind. Like, that card's gonna grind for us here. Put this on top. Sure. Play this. Come in for damage. They'll get to Yorion. We're not still in the greatest position. Okay, Scalds. Not like too crazy. Okay, Fabled is bad though, because they get a lot more mana here. So they're potentially going to be able to use their Yorion to blink. So let's kind of see like what type of turn they have. We still have a Brazen Borrow, which feels pretty good. And then we also have... Like, we're not going to be able to use the Cavalier next turn, which is a shame. We might have wanted to move the Bone Crusher up over top of it. In hindsight. Just because the Bone Crusher would deal an additional 2. Okay, do they have like a kill spell for the Cavalier? That'd be a bit unfortunate. Oh wow, yeah, just a straight exile spell. That's pretty good. So we definitely have to block a Shaya here. They have 2 mana left, so they'll probably Growth Spiral, deal us 4, put us down to 16. Okay, Florahedron, yep. Coming in for 12 and some critters. Could almost come in with everybody now. Alright, so this is a bit scary here. We're definitely going to have to plan out our turn a lot better. I don't think that we want that. I'd rather just take the Bone Crusher here. So what are our plays looking like? We can wipe most of the board. Power, toughness, number of lands you control. So either way, that card's going to be massive. Could bounce it, smash, wipe the board. But then Omnath could be pretty beefy, and if they have like 2 land drops, we're kind of boned. They have the Yorion, so either way they're going to get the blink stuff. Swing in. Yeah, I think we anger either way. We just really want to wipe the board. We can only either stomp or bounce. I think I would rather... They're at 8. I would... Oh, we can't bounce because it's a land. Ooh, can we not bounce anything then? Yeah, the only thing we could bounce is the Scald, so we do actually just have to shoot this down. But then we'd be taking the damage back. Kind of just have to actually cast the Bone Crusher here. And take a chance on them not having a removal spell. Or casting like a bunch of cards this turn. They have to cast 6 spells to make the Omnath 10. And we're still not in the best spot. You can make an argument that maybe the creature land will get us there. Especially if they tap out. But it's also unlikely that they tap out because of the Yorion. Okay, Risen Reef, yep. So it just looks like there's a bunch of stuff about to happen here, unfortunately for us. Okay, gonna get some more mana, draw a card. Really wanted a fires, you know, like kind of got bit a little bit by putting the fires underneath to try to dig for the land. But we did need the mana. Okay, gonna march the Bone Crusher. So yep, we're just gonna die here. Pretty close, but they just kept gaining life from the Omnath, or else we would have raced them there. So the Ashiok might give us a reason to almost like want to play one at least. Brazen hasn't really been all that crazy for us. It's still fine. Yeah, let's try something like this. It still feels weird bringing the Ashoks in because sometimes it doesn't really do anything, but let's say, like, since we're on the play, like, if we get it down and then our opponent can't really cultivate, that's just really good, right? The Fables also stopped. We do have to take a mulligan here, though. This is a hand we can keep. We're going to put back a Fable. Keeping the Anger just in case our opponent does some shenanigans. We don't have any red, so I could see wanting to put the Anger back, but I think I'm just going to rely on this Sphinx to kind of help us out here, hopefully. The token can also attack, make a treasure, things like that. So, I mean, we're not too far off of this hand being really good. Maybe we do put the Anger back. I'm really worried about our opponent getting a really fast start. We just want to avoid that. Want to avoid that at all costs. Yep, get this down. So yeah, we got a couple lands that we're about to draw. We have a Cavalier eventually. It's looking pretty good. Obviously, we're not going to get to cast the Cavalier anytime soon, but still having all these cards is pretty good. Okay, 2 life for Cobra. And I actually think we just do this. Like, it's weird, but we're also going to have a lot more tempo than them next turn unless they keep a counterspell for this Fires of Invention, which they don't have any blue, so it's going to resolve. And then we could play Sphinx after that. Okay, they do have the Cultivate, so they're going to get to ramp a little bit, but we're really hoping that we can go over the top of our opponent here in the next few turns. This Sphinx, we're like kind of desperate to try to hit a land off of. Let's go ahead and see if we get to do it. And let's also see if it stays in play. They could just tap on their turn and then exile it. And then we have a backup Fable, which isn't bad. I really need to hit a land drop here, even if it comes into play tapped. Alright, we did hit the land drop, so we'll draw it. We will play it. We will play this card for 0 mana. Do we want to get rid of the Fable? I don't think so. It's like a gasoline card still. Put this, play this for free. Okay, give everything haste. And attack. 4 lethal, they have to block. So they're going to take 11 here. And they're going to go down to 7. And we still have some free cards we could play. We got a Scry to maybe try to hit something good. So they could have a Fable here, which is scary, considering they'll be able to gain some life and maybe make some mana, but that's all that they have. We'll put that card on the bottom. We draw a Sphinx for free. And we'll play land, Fable for free, pump up the team, divide the Omnath, and just do a bunch of crazy stuff. So yeah, that was definitely what we planned up. Just, you know, kind of a lot of nutty things to do with the Fires of Invention there, and a lot of the time you are going to go over the top of whatever your opponent's doing. So even the Yorion, you know, classically has a lot of the late game handled. The thing about this deck is that we kind of just go off super quick, right? Like our value just happens a lot sooner. Like, yeah, they are probably going to get to untap with Omnath, and there's a potential that they could do some crazy things, but we were just able to do our strategy a lot sooner. So let's go and see how the rest of our matches go. Let's go. Fires of Invention. Can we cast some free spells? We're going to find out here. We're on the play, already a good start. And I actually think this hand's somewhat decent. We can use the Sphinx to kind of scry up some good cards if we need them. Maybe put some things on the bottom. The Anger of the Gods is a board wipe, and then we just have our big boom booms later. And it looks like we have a Chandra on turn 4. We do need another red mana. So I think we'll just keep it like this. And let's just play the Castle Vantress. Maybe we'll just go with Island and not really give too much information what we're doing. I kind of was thinking about maybe like making the opponent think that we're like control. Ooh, Spirits though. Okay. Okay, gonna be a little bit of a tough matchup here. Their deck has a bit of a quicker start than we do for sure. This Anger of the Gods isn't as good because of the Mausoleum Wander on the battlefield, but if it's just 1 powered, then we can just keep the mana up for the eventual Anger of the Gods. So let's go ahead and get Keruga into our hand here. They might just slam Rattle Chains. That looks like Spectral Sailor. And maybe another Spectral Sailor here. Could just be holding on to it to maybe flash it in when we do something. Okay, gonna pump that up. So they did have another Sailor. And they're actually going to put the Curious Obsession there, which is kind of surprising, honestly. Do they have the land drop? It's a colorless land. Alright, here we go. They can sack the Wanderer, but we just pay the mana. And they concede the game. Alright, so got lucky there. Really, really lucky there, honestly. That deck can do some crazy things. So we're going to bring in these 2 Mystical Disputes, the other Anger of the Gods. And Chandra does cost quite a bit of mana is the problem. That it's like a little bit of something that worries me by bringing it in here. Divide is okay. It's like a little bit too slow almost. It's 3 mana. Do we want some of these other cards is kind of like a lot of the question too. Like Fable's a little bit slow, a little bit clunky. Like, it's good on 3, but that's, like, kind of... Even then, it's probably not that impactful. I think I still almost want, like, the other Chandra. We can cut a Cavalier or Gale. I think we can cut a red Cavalier. There is a chance that we don't get to that late part of the game, but maybe if we were able to kind of stall them out a little bit, play on their turn, it could end up working out. So going to be on the draw this time. I actually think this hand is fantastic. We can definitely keep it. We have Sphinx of the Foresight, which has just been phenomenal in this deck so far. And let's go ahead and show this card off here. We'll get some scries in. And they have a Spirit, which is pretty good. Let's scry. I don't really think that we want most of these cards. We will definitely want some mana eventually, but right now I think it's okay. So let's see if they play land and then just activate this to get out of stomp range. Yep, we'll take it. We'll play Castle Vantress and end the turn. If they would like to pump it, we're just going to stomp here. Yep, just going to stomp it. Stomp that. Stomp that, opponent. Oh, come on, stomp. Oh, getting into Platinum 2. Getting in here with some more Keruga fires. Let's see if we can keep it rolling here. On the play, seems pretty good. I think this hand is okay. We're really relying on drawing a third land, but we'll definitely give it a shot here, considering that we do have a pretty good amount of lands left in the deck still, even after all of these. So let's go ahead and pass it back with our Steam Vents tapped. Looks like we're actually up against a Yorion deck again, so could end up being a little bit risky here. Go ahead and pass it back. Sultai Yorion, maybe Sultimatum. That is actually definitely what it's looking like, right? So let's go play the Stormcarved Coast. I'll go for the Fable into potential counterspell. I think a Growth Spiral. Yep, there it is. There's the Growth Spiral. They get to play land tap, so they're ramping a little bit. Maybe they have their own fires. We'll see. If they do, we're definitely going to be in a bit of trouble here. So far, our opponent is 4 colors. Let's see what else is up their bag. Growth Spiral, yep. Right. Get rid of these Anger of the Gods. They're not doing anything right now. Could be wrong, but I don't know. Coming in for damage. They have 2 mana open, or they're just going to kill my token. If they kill my token, don't really care. I think we play Sphinx first because it helps our draw out, and we also keep up a mana if they want to like Dwarius or something. On top of that, like this isn't... I don't want to just tap out for this and have that countered. Next turn is going to feel a lot better too because we're going to maybe be able to get to deal some damage to our opponent off of the ability when it comes into play. I still like having the Brazen Bar here in case we do need to bounce like a problematic permanent. Alright, let's go see what our opponent's up to here on this turn. They didn't crack the Fable, so potentially we're looking for like a white source for like a Omnath. I'm not really sure what is going on right now. I mean, to me, what I'm thinking is it's a NivMizzet deck. Just because we're seeing all the colors, and I think by them playing the Triumph, I think I might be right here. So, yep, Thought Erasure, sure, they're going to take the Cavalier Flame, which is a bit annoying, but we do have a lot more powerful cards in our hand, which is great. Looks like they actually kept the card on top. We'll get the Scry as well. Another Sphinx. This is going to flip as well, right? Yep. I don't think that we want that. I think I'd rather try to draw something powerful. Okay, yeah, we didn't hit anything powerful. It's a bit unfortunate, but we still have quite a bit of damage on the battlefield. Let's try to scry. Yep, scry that to the bottom. Let's come in for 6 here. Put our opponent down to 12. And the question is, do we want to put Keruga into our hand? I actually think we do. A lot of the main reason as well for wanting to put Keruga into our hand right now is because, let's say our opponent like wipes the board, we could play the Brazen Borrow and then play the Keruga and still get to draw a card. So we would, you know, potentially see an additional card next turn, which is great. Alright, so they went for a black source. They could have a removal spell here that they didn't use yet. Yep, and it looks like it is the Tyrant Scorn. So Reflection's going to go ahead and die here. We'll pass a turn back. So let's go and, you know, if they slam a NivMizzet, we bounce it. Like, yeah, they're getting some value. Okay, that's fine. So they're going to get to do a lot of things next turn, but they can't do anything yet, which is really good for us. I think we just play the Brazen Borrower because this is almost lethal. I think I'd rather just try to win. Scry that to the top. Yes, we do scry that to the top. I think we still play Keruga because it also doesn't die to the NivMizzet. It gives us a chance to kind of draw some cards we want. Yeah, that was a great draw there with the divide by 0. It's going to help us bounce this if that's what they play, because they're going to have a land drop that comes in play on tap. So they're going to go for this and play the Niv is what I would think they're going to do. It really depends on what, you know, the rest of their hand's shaping up like. But they'd be able to get rid of 2 of our cards, have a pretty decent sized blocker to get rid of, you know, most of the things that we're going to attack with. But having this divide by 0 could end up sealing the game for us right now. So we'll see if that's what ends up getting us the win here. We also have enough mana to Cavalier plus divide. So we're going to get to look through some cards and maybe get something else that'll be useful. But it looked like our opponent kind of just conceded there, so we got away with that one. We're going to grab a couple Mystical Disputes here. I don't really think that the Chandra's like insane. It's not crazy. It's like an option. Don't get me wrong. Ashiok's fine. I mean, they have Fable. I don't like these decks. Don't really play. I don't believe too much search. I could be wrong here. I'm gonna take a look myself real quick here, but let's see. Let's look at the last list. So they have like a Yasharn maybe. And it's looking like that's really all they're using besides the fetch land. I'm really wondering if we want the Chandra here. Just not sure. I still like the divide because they're kind of like... you know, they play a lot of big spells. They tap out on their turn a lot. I'm going to get rid of all the Angers. And we do keep the Fable. And let's bring in a Chandra. I just like having it. You know, if we get to go over the top, then, you know, it happens. If not, then that's okay too. We're going to be on the draw this time. Let's hope that we have a pretty decent open hand here. And it's actually alright. We got a couple fires, so we might be able to resolve those and then get a Chandra down. You know, really want to get this Fable on turn 3. And right now, we just need to draw some lands. That's kind of where we're at. We don't really even care what else happens because we just have a lot of powerful cards right now going on. And it looks like our opponent has a slow start, so we can actually be a little bit slow as well. And let's put that Cavalier on the bottom. Unfortunately, I did not play this Castle Vantress first, thinking that one of these was a island, so a little bit risky here. They do have the Fable as well, which is going to be able to ramp them. I think we're just going to have to go for our Fable and hope that the token survives here. Pretty low chance, I would think. But it's definitely not looking good. You know, missing the Vantress there on turn 1 might end up biting us, but it's okay. We've still got some game here. We've still got some good cards in our hand. Our opponent's deck is also another deck that, you know, likes to go over the top and make the game longer, so... Okay, they're going to attack. I don't think that we block here. Just let it happen. They kill the token, they kill the token. I'm not really that crazy heartbroken over it, but it looks like they do have a 5-drop as they're using this Fable passage here. So I'm thinking it's like a NivMizzet maybe? Looking for a green, yep. Binding, so what are they going to get rid of here? They're going to get rid of the Fable. That's fine. Okay, we actually didn't need the Fable as much as we needed the token, which is quite hilarious. And we'll go ahead and Chandra here. And can we do anything crazy? No, let's just deal 2 damage. You know, it's kind of okay. Like, we're not able to cast that instant speed, so losing that isn't the worst thing. We really want to hit a land here because we'll get to cast the Cavalier for free. Having both Chandras is pretty nice. Chandra is going to get to take some damage, unfortunately. And they do have a reflection, so getting rid of our Anger of the Gods seems bad now, but a lot of the time it's just like because of this card. You know, like it makes so much value that, yeah, cutting your board wipe seems bad, but I mean, against the rest of their deck, the board wipes don't really do much. So, yep, Chandra's going to go down to 3. We have another free Chandra next turn. Really hoping to hit a land drop here. If not, we can still cast the Cavalier off of the Chandra. And then get a Keruga down to draw a bunch of cards. Opponent still has 4 mana left, so they could have another binding maybe. They only play 1, it looks like, from the latest list that I'm looking at here. So what we're really trying to dodge to later in the game is like Extinction Event, because they could just end up wiping us out. Alright, but we hit a land, which is fantastic. So I think here we still want to look at the top card of our library, potentially cast it. Nope, just going to deal our opponent some damage. Going to go ahead and put the Keruga in hand. Try to cast the Cavalier first. It's going to get the Brainstorm. Maybe we hit a card that we want to cast instead. We could put these Fires of Inventions away. Now let's see what we get. Bone Crusher's not bad. We don't really need these. There isn't a way to get rid of them though, but Chandra will be able to deal with it on top of our deck. Yeah, we just have to do this. This just has to happen. We can even come in with the Goblin. Feels pretty good. We're still at 18. Put our opponent down to 12 here. And pass it back. Okay, they got a Justice Strike for the Cavalier. Just gets shuffled back in. And it shuffles both of these Fires away, which is fantastic. Kind of what we wanted. Do we just keep Bone Crusher? Yeah, that's fine. It's just more damage. Opponent's at 12. Chandra can do some things potentially. Yep, Chandra's going to take 2 here. So, I mean, if they have a damage spell, that's fine. I mean, we have a backup Chandra, bounce spell. Keruga's going to maybe draw some cards. It's looking all right. Still not looking bad. They're going to go ahead and crack the fetch. They use the Yorion. Right now, they're not getting any value. They could have a Niv plus the Yorion, which would be pretty insane, honestly. Okay, Kroxa. It's pretty good. Yeah, I think we just get rid of the land and take some damage here. They can actually get the Kroxa back, so do we just discard the Chandra? We might want to. Can also just bounce the Kroxa back and then just draw a bunch of cards. I think that, let's see. Yeah, let's get rid of the second Chandra. Seems kind of scary. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe Chandra, maybe get something good off of it here, off of the top of the deck. Cavalier would be sweet. Okay, we're just dealing some damage. So right now we're just burning our opponent out quite a bit here. Do we want a Keruga? I think either way we do want a Keruga to draw some cards. Let's bounce that. Let's Keruga. We'll draw some cards at discard to the Kroxa. Yep, that seems pretty good. I'll put them down to 8. We have the Sphinx to discard. We get the Scribe with the Castle of Antris. We have 4 damage just alone on the Bone Crushers. So our opponent kind of has to do quite a lot here to stay in the game. I actually think we just block. Yep. If they want to kill the Keruga, I'm not worried about it. It's not a big deal. We have 6 damage alone on just burn. Yep. not a big deal. Supreme Verdict. The Croxa will discard the Sphinx. Yep. They're going to get the Croxa at some point, eventually again in the game. Discard this. Going to try to scry for a Cavalier for the win here. And our opponent's actually just going to concede. I mean, we're pretty far ahead. There's not really much they can do in their position, so we'll go ahead and take another match down. Keruga fires, burning down the competition. Pizza people, are you enjoying the content? Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. It's free. Hit that bell icon as well. That way, anytime any of our new content comes out, you're able to see it right away. Hey, leave a comment down below as well. Tell us what you're going to play in the next event, or tell us what you're enjoying about the video. Don't forget, check out the description too. We've got tons of great content down below. And on top of that, we're going to have our tournament schedule too. So get in on it. Hope to see you. Jumping into some more games here. With Keruga fires. Let's see if we can keep grinding our opponents out on the play. This hand looks spectacular. We've got fires. We've got Cavalier. We have a divide by 0 to hold us off for a little bit, depending on what our opponent's doing. And let's see if this is another good matchup for us. You know, we're really hoping to just play against some mid-range decks. They're a lot slower. Ooh, baby, we've got aggro. We do have aggro, though. So we're gonna be taking some damage. This Fable's gonna have to block for us. Alright, so no spells so far. Oh, wow. Oh, but we don't have a red land. Oof. Yeah, I'm actually just gonna bounce this now. And get this into our hand. It's a little bit awkward, but I don't mind it. Like, the Fable's good because maybe the Fable plays... gets us the treasure, but it's also kind of doubtful. Alright, yeah, let's go ahead and just get a land here. Get this red source. And we're obviously just really hoping that they tap out, or else we're just gonna try to cast some more big cards. We need some lands. If we hit one land, it's looking alright. Okay, make that 3/4. So now the anger is just not good anymore. It's looking really bad now. We're gonna go down to 14. So, you know, missing that second red on time really hurt us here. We'll go ahead and cast this Fable for free. Also, missing the land drop there was definitely problematic. So, yeah, let's go and see what we can do here. And we're going to take a lot of damage. Are we just dead here? I think we're just dead. That's a lot. 11? 11. Nope. 10, 12, or 12, 15. Yeah, looking pretty dead. Missing the second red was our downfall that game. For sure. Let's just bring in one Chandra. It's an expensive card. Divide just seems like okay against them. Like, it'll be fine sometimes, but not always. Alright, so let's hope and see if we can hit our second red on time and maybe try to anger the gods. And you can kind of see how, like, this is going to be the #1 weakness of the deck. It's just going to be, you know, like some super hyper aggressive deck that kind of just kills you as fast. Like, a lot of your games start on turn 3. I mean, you know, you're playing against an aggro deck, that's not really good enough. I think we'll keep it. I think that we will keep it. We're going to hope that the Sphinx saves us yet again. Going to put a fires away. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. And yep, let's go keep this. Put a fires back. Yep, let's get this scry in. Shoo, stomp. Oh. Sure. All right. Even though our third land's going to come into play top, I think that's fine. I mean, we don't really have much of an option right now. Kind of have to take what we can get, in all honesty. Pass the turn back. Hope that they play a card we can kill. They might be like saving their hoplite with the protection spell, which would be, obviously annoying, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and just keep playing around it, right? We kind of just have to keep going forward. If they just play the 2-2 with haste, it's just dead. Yep. So, I mean, we got pretty lucky that they played into the game plan that we wanted. And we're really hoping to scry into a land. And it is a land, but it comes into play tap. We do get to play Bone Crusher next turn. So we're not completely out of it just yet. Let's see what they have. Okay, Lumina Virtuoso. Pretty scary card, not going to lie. But we got some blocks with the Bone Crusher, so let's get that down. There is a world where maybe we draw land, we hit the fires into the Cavalier, and then we kind of can keep some things going. Even if Cavalier has the block, it blocks, and that's fine. Okay, this does give trample though, doesn't it? Yeah, it's pretty scary. It's going to get pretty big here. We're going to block some of it. We're going to block some of it. Yep. Either way, we're blocking. If they want to use some other spells, then they use some other spells, and at least it gets it out of their hand, I guess. Like they're going to use them anyways. Like we would rather soak up some of the damage here. If we don't top deck a land, then we still have a Fires into a Sphinx, which is an okay play. It's not obviously, bomb, but it's still something. All right, so I believe it's just a 3-3 for now. So it does still trade with our 5-5. We didn't hit a land. But let's get the fires down, and then we'll actually brazen borrow the Virtuoso, or try to. Opponent might have a protection spell. If they do, then we just lose. All right, yep, so Jerry's Shelter, and they're probably going to make this a 4-4, so it's looking like 8 damage so far. So we might end up being dead here. And honestly, if we had played the Sphinx, we still might have just lost to this Jerry Shelter because they would have just given it protection. So, yep, opponent's flashing the good game. Looks like they got an Ancestral here. Going to pump it up to a 5-5, 7-5. Going to pump it up some more here with the Homestead Courage. So, as you can see, anytime that we're playing against a mid-range strategy, we can kind of just go way over the top of it. Even some of the slower decks, we just have a pretty big chance because each one of our cards is so powerful. But against decks like these, these are the decks that are going to give you the most problem, is anything that's just like ridiculously aggressive. And it looks like our opponent's just going for the super big win here. 16-10 Virtuoso, let's go. 32 damage, no big deal. So yeah, dead on first strike damage. But you know what? This deck was really, really sweet for us today. And we're going to meet you up for the post-game wrap. Hey, welcome back. Time for the post-game talk. So, this deck can do some really busted things. On top of that, it's actually a very, very competitive deck in my opinion. The person that actually built the deck got all the way up to 11 on the arena ladder. So, I mean, that's definitely, pretty high up there if I do say so myself. I think this deck's just really solid overall. It has tons of ways to attack your opponent. You don't always just need a Fires of Invention down just because all of your cards are so powerful by themselves. But when you do get the Fires down and you get to untap, and you kind of just start to do a bunch of crazy stuff with the Cavaliers. The Keruga starts to get out of control where you're drawing like 3 or 4 cards. It's just a really, really powerful deck. I actually think this is a deck that is really good against Rakdos. I think that if you see a lot of Rakdos on the ladder, or if you go to a tournament, this would be one of the best decks you can take to the tournament because you have some of the sideboard, like the lane lines, the mysticals. You have some of these cards that are a little bit easier for beating a control deck. And you also have cards that beat the very popular strategies like Cat Oven, like the Grease Fang. And already, like, every time that we played against Rakdos, I mean, we just, that deck didn't really have much of a chance. Like, unfortunately, that was a little bit, like, on the stream, so we weren't recording yet. But, yeah, every time we ran against Rakdos, like, the deck didn't really, it just couldn't do anything. We just went over the top of it every time. I mean, all of our cards are so much more powerful. And then you know, they can't remove Fires of Invention, so then we kind of just go off with our Cavaliers kind of pretty freely, as long as they weren't Thoughtseize or anything like that. Keruga helps you with the card advantage. Chandra is obviously a powerful card against them, so even against a deck like Spirits, I know that we lost our first matchup against it, I believe, but the second time that we played it, we kind of just, you know, rolled them over a little bit, but I think overall this deck's just really, really phenomenal. I sincerely recommend this deck for a tournament. I want to see someone take this to one of our events and take the Explore event down, put Rakdos in its place, because I really think that this is the type of deck that helps you against those, like, you know, super grindy mid-range strategies, and it could end up opening up the format quite a bit more, which, you know, a lot of the time when you think of Fires, you know, you're like, oh, it's just such a broken card, and don't get me wrong, we're doing some pretty crazy things here, but you know, it's not like the deck's unbeatable. There's definitely ways around it, and you know, if you're playing like an aggressive strategy, you're kind of just gonna run this deck over. But I know that I had a blast against this deck. I can't even stop talking about it. If you made it this far into the video, I hope that you drop a subscribe on the channel, leave a like, a comment down below, tell me what you thought of the video, and tell me what you think of the deck as well. Check out all the links to our tournaments, 3 free a month with cash prizes, my content down below, and I hope that you stay cheesy.